everyone, Jamie Madison here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today's card is going to be featuring the Mama Elephant Cool Penguins. These cute little guys, I decided to go ahead and stamp out on some Bristol Smooth cardstock paper using my Gina K ink. I'm going to go right into the Copic coloring, and for my Copic coloring I'm going to be working lightest to darkest, and I will have all the Copics in the left hand corner for you as well if you want to replicate or use the same colors. So for my penguins, I decided to stay with a little bit more cheerful and lighter colors, and I actually did this card already on my Instagram live. Around December and November, I sometimes get on Instagram and like to do live videos with some of my crafty friends. So if you're ever interested in joining us for a late night craft session, it's usually on the weekends, head on over to my Instagram and I would love to hang out and chat with you. So for these penguins, I'm just going to do some Copic coloring, and I'm going to add in a little bit of Christmas cheer music, and I'll let you guys enjoy. If not, you can fast forward ahead. Alrighty, welcome back, and if I still have you here, thank you for staying with me. And we're just going to finish up these penguins, and then I'm going to start on the background. For the background, I'm going to bring out my Bristol Smooth cardstock paper because we're going to be doing some Distress Oxide ink blending on it. Now for the Distress Oxides, I'm going to be using Worn Lipstick and Wilted Violet. This is a very simple background. You don't really need a whole lot of skill to do this. You're just going to blend one color at the top and then blend the other color in the middle. The bottom we're going to leave white because that is going to be covered up with some die cuts. So I started with my Worn Lipstick at the top, and then I just went in with my Wilted Violet for my center, and I just blended those two colors together. This is a very simple background. To finish it up, I did go in with a little bit of water spray to add a little bit of snow. Now moving on to the bottom, I'm going to bring out my lawn fawn. This is the Stitched Hill dies, and I'm just going to be using 3 of these to make a little bit of some snowy drifts. I just used a little bit of scrap white piece of paper. You can use whatever kind of white paper you want. And I taped those down and I ran those through my die cut. Afterwards, I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to use when I'm using multiple die cuts and adhering them onto my card. So I have them in order that I want, and I'm going to take a little bit of purple tape and I'm going to place that on these die cuts so they all stay right where I want them to be. And I'm going to take a little bit of my Tombow multi-medium glue, and I'm going to glue the first one down. And see, it keeps my other ones right where I want them to be. And then I can just pull a little bit of my tape back and add glue onto the next section. And then once I have the glue on that section, I can just fold it back up. It's going to be right where I want it to be. It's kind of like the press and seal technique. And then for my third hill, I'm going to go ahead and use some double foam tape. I like this technique when I'm using multiple die cuts because it keeps everything where I want it to be, and I don't have to worry about, oh, how did I have that, or taking a picture of it beforehand. It just works out really well for me. So now that we have all of our hills glued and foam taped down, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess. And then I used my ATG roller and put some tape on the back of this panel and taped it down to an A2 size background. So once I have this adhered, I can go ahead and start adding my elements, which are my penguins. I went ahead and fussy cutted these out, or die cut them out, whatever you have for this kit, and I'm going to start gluing these down. One of them I will pop up with some foam tape, but most of them I just used my Tombow glue since we already had some dimension with the snow. So I'm just going to go along and glue these down with my Tombow glue and put them right where I want. I do use a pair of tweezers just because sometimes I get glue on my fingers and everything gets sticky, so it's a little bit easier sometimes to use my tweezers for this. So I'm just going along, placing my penguins where I want them, gluing them down, making sure I got the right angle. I thought about moving the wrapping paper, but it was already glued down. That was going nowhere. So I went ahead and just put the penguin on the right side. Then added my little final present. Then I'm going to go in with just a tad bit of foam tape just because that last hill had some dimension on it. Our penguins are kind of hanging off on their heads. So I just add a little bit of foam tape behind their heads to ground them down a little bit. I'm now going to go ahead and go in with my Copic marker to add some shadow underneath the penguins and the presents just to kind of ground them to the scene. The Copic color that I'm using is C1. It's my lightest cool gray that I have, and it dries really nice, and it does give a beautiful shadow to this card. After I have my Copics done, I'm going to go in with my sentiment. For the sentiment, I'm using the Simon Says stamp Christmas Wishes. And I did let my panel dry for quite a while. Don't go right in with your sentiment because Distress Oxide and inks, they do take a little bit longer to dry. So just make sure you test it before you go in with your embossing. So I stamped down using my Versamark, "May peace be in your hearts and home this Christmas." Also, don't forget to use your anti-static powder before you stamp this down. Just because we did use that Versamark and we did use those Distress Oxides, we don't want any white embossing powder where we don't want it. I went ahead and used my heat tool to set that till it was smooth and melted. And then we are pretty much finished with this card. I did add some final accents you will see in the pictures to this card. And here is the blue card that I made on my Instagram. So check that out, and thank you guys so much for joining me today. I will see you next week with another holiday card. Thanks. Bye.